Hello?
I caught a big, fat bug right in my spiderweb.
Today, we'll be talking about a little movie from 1967 called Spider Baby. Or is it the maddest story ever told? Whatever you want to call it, this movie is like a big, drunken orgy of insanity. Spider Baby is a low-budget horror comedy that flew under the radar when it was originally released, but it went on to become a cult classic. And there's good reason for that. It's dark, funny, weird, and in many ways it was ahead of the curve. But we'll get to all that. Heads up, this review will contain minor spoilers, so if you haven't seen Spider Baby, it's presently available over on Tubi.
Spider Baby will thrill you, then kill you.
Spider Baby is about an oddball family cursed with an unusual affliction, the rare Murray syndrome. This inherited disease causes members of the family to mentally and physically regress.
It is believed that eventually the victim of the Murray syndrome may even regress beyond the prenatal level, reverting to a pre-human condition of savagery and cannibalism.
As this regression occurs, the kids/adults/kids tend to act out. And how exactly do they act out? Well, right from the opening scene, a delivery man finds himself trapped and hacked apart by one of the Murray daughters, aka our Spider Baby. The central plot of Spider Baby revolves around distant relatives and a lawyer who show up to repossess the Murray estate. Even though this property may be falling apart, it's all the family has, and they're not about to give it up that easily.
We're not prepared for guests.
There seems to be a difference of opinion as to who is the guest and who the host here.
Needless to say, things go off the rails, and as the tale unfolds, we get a ton of creepy moments, offbeat humor, and some good old-fashioned horror that just may give you nightmares forever.
Spider Baby will give you nightmares forever.
Even from the opening credits, which feature a campy song reminiscent of Addams Family or The Monsters, we know we're in for some fun. Spider Baby was written and directed by the legendary cult filmmaker Jack Hill, who does very well here on all fronts. Especially when you consider that the movie was shot in just 12 days on an extremely low budget back in 1964. Unfortunately, the producers went bankrupt, so the film wasn't even released until 1967.
Those people. I hate them.
Jack Hill was famously described by Quentin Tarantino as the Howard Hawks of exploitation filmmaking. Hill began his career working with Roger Corman and eventually made a name for himself with women in prison films such as The Big Dollhouse and The Big Birdcage.
A strange and brutal world of men who are only half men and women who are more than all woman.
His other popular films included Foxy Brown and The Switchblade Sisters. The cast in Spider Baby is awesome, with each player bringing this unique story to life. Our lead is the legendary Lon Chaney Jr. He portrays Bruno, the chauffeur, who has been tasked with caring for these three orphan siblings.
You were not supposed to play Spider anymore. Now you never can play Spider again.
Lon Chaney Jr. is best known for his iconic role in the 1941 classic The Wolfman. And let's not forget about Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman from 1943. Speaking of which, in this very movie we get some fun nods to Lon Chaney Jr.'s Universal Monster legacy.
Dracula, Frankenstein.
And the Mummy?
Oh, the Mummy. I love the Mummy. And the Wolfman.
There's going to be a full moon tonight.
This is an incredibly strong and heartfelt performance from Lon Chaney Jr. He keeps this whole goofy nightmare together as best as he can. Sure, he's misguided, but his dedication to this family is completely genuine, which makes for an odd but tragic dynamic because they need way more than he can ever give.
Virginia, are you crazy? Now look what you've done. You're bad.
Two other bright spots in the film are the Merry daughters, Elizabeth, as played by Beverly Washburn, and Virginia, as played by Jill Banner. These two play off each other very well throughout, bickering, teasing, and challenging each other. Virginia in particular is the more deadly of the two for obvious reasons.
I smell a bug.
These are the types of roles which could have easily gone over the top. However, Banner and Washburn find a perfect middle ground between childlike innocence and homicidal tendencies. They mostly play the material straight, which gives the film an edge. At any given moment, you have no clue what these two are capable of.
Ralph. Where's Ralph?
Fans of Rob Zombie will quickly spot one of his regulars, Sid Haig, who portrays Ralph. Ralph's a mute who mainly travels via the dumbwaiter, and in his spare time, he can be found creeping along the outside of the home. It's interesting seeing a very young Sid Haig here portraying a character that's even more animalistic than the other two players. Haig's depiction is unhinged, but there's also nuance in his performance. Haig not only nailed the physicality of this role, but he also managed to imbue Ralph with a unique personality that makes for such a memorable character. The remainder of the cast consists of Manton Moreland, Mary Mitchell, Carl Schanzer, and Carol Omhart, who some of you may recall from House on the Haunted Hill.
Hey, are you really a Wolf fan? A Wolf fan? And
I also want to spotlight another one of my favorites, Quinn Redeker. Redeker plays Peter Howe, a distant cousin who's so carefree and oblivious, you almost have to admire him.
Aw, he's all right, Emily. He's just a big kid.
No matter how crazy things get, practically nothing phases this guy. Lastly, I wanted to credit Spider Baby for a dinner scene that's hilarious, gross, and memorable as hell. The dinner scene is the perfect setup for the Merry family, and it predates many of the infamous dinner scenes we'd see in later films.
What's the matter? The food ain't that bad.
In terms of being ahead of the curve, well, long before the Sawyer family, the Jupiter clan, or the Firefly family, there was the Merry family. Granted, this bunch is not as gruesome, but they're just as dysfunctional. Another aspect of this film that felt ahead of its time is that it focuses on the unhinged family themselves. Nowadays, it's common for the anti-heroes or even the villains to take center stage. But here, we have an older movie that takes us up close and personal with characters who would typically be the antagonists in other films of its time.
I pass.
well, it looks good to me.
Spider Baby may not have packed the movie theaters and drive-ins, but I think it stood the test of time and it's still thoroughly entertaining. It's no wonder that Spider Baby influenced the likes of Quentin Tarantino and Rob Zombie. And yes, there's even a remake out there as well. Interestingly, the remake features Lon Chaney, the grandson of Lon Chaney Jr., and the returning Beverly Washburn. Now, most of my generation grew up on 80s and 90s gems such as Evil Dead 2, Return of the Living Dead, and Tremors. Those were our go-to movies when we wanted a mix of horror and laughs. So for me, it's refreshing to explore horror comedy from an earlier era.
For the horror thrill of your life, see Spider Baby from American General Pictures.
If you're already a fan of this bizarre cult hit, feel free to share your thoughts below. And for those of you who haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you dive into the madness. You won't regret it. I'd rate Spider Baby 4 out of 5 spiderweb traps. Thanks for watching, everyone. You know what to do. If you like this video, hit like, hit sub, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and be well. Later.
Are you really a wolf fan? A wolf fan, and...
Oh, yes. I think that's how every man should be. Like a wild beast.